Tony Grossi, a longtime Cleveland media voice with plenty of strong opinions and even stronger biases, launched into a rant about Shedeur being too confident, too flashy, and not ready. You know the type. That classic, tired narrative. Young player with swagger equals immature and arrogant. Never mind the fact that Shedeur has a proven college resume, composure under pressure, and the backing of an NFL coaching staff. Grossi had already made up his mind. But then came the twist. Grossi contradicted himself mid-argument. He tried to claim Shedeur was being delusional for saying he's better than a lot of QBs in the league, only to admit moments later that the Browns' offense is awful and can't move the ball.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Oh, so the rookie who believes he can do better than a guy throwing 5-yard outs into the dirt is wrong? How exactly? That's where the argument fell apart spectacularly. Because what Grossi unintentionally revealed wasn't just bias. It was how little analysis was actually going into his take. Instead of breaking down Shedeur's reads, decision-making, or mechanics, he fixated on sacks in a preseason game and framed them as a death sentence. Never mind that Sanders didn't turn the ball over, stayed poised, and played smart, situational football. Grossi went for surface-level drama, and the drama flipped back on him. It's a classic example of sports media twisting confidence into controversy. Grossi painted Shedeur as attention-hungry, but failed to mention the media came to him for the interview. And Shedeur? He gave honest answers. He backed himself. Something every elite quarterback is supposed to do, but when he does it, suddenly it's a problem. Meanwhile, quarterbacks like Jackson Dart or Caleb Williams get praised for their swagger and flair. But Shedeur gets criticized for having the exact same qualities? That double standard isn't just unfair, it's glaring. Grossi might have thought he was delivering a hard-hitting critique, but all he did was reveal how deep the bias runs. And that's the story here. Not whether Shedeur is ready, because his poise, production, and patience speak volumes, but how quick the media is to distort that into something it's not. Grossi tried to frame Sanders as a symbol of what's wrong with young players today. Instead, he became a cautionary tale about how not to analyze quarterbacks in 2025. Because while Grossi was rambling about flash and media distractions, Shedeur Sanders was calmly making his case with performance, professionalism, and the one thing you can't fake, belief in himself. And the only person who didn't seem ready for that was Tony. In just one segment, Tony Grossi did what so many sports media veterans are guilty of doing. He took a surface-level gripe, dipped it in personal bias, and tried to pass it off as football insight. And this time, his target was Shedeur Sanders, a rookie quarterback with every reason to walk confidently and nothing in his record suggests he shouldn't. But here's where it gets embarrassing. Grossi's argument didn't just fall flat. It folded in on itself like a cheap lawn chair. He started off strong, or at least he thought he did, claiming Sanders was too confident, too self-assured, to me first, for a quarterback who hadn't even earned his NFL stripes. The implication? That Sanders was all talk, no action. That his presence in Cleveland was more about brand than ball. But then mid-rant, Grossi exposed the cracks in his own logic. He admitted the Browns' offense was awful, that it can't move the ball, that it looks broken, that the quarterback room is in disarray, and that maybe, just maybe, the young guy with confidence and leadership potential is actually what the team needs. Wait, what? So, the offense is terrible. The vets aren't delivering. The scoring is stagnant. And the rookie who hasn't even started yet is the problem? That math doesn't check out. Grossi's rant wasn't just misguided. It was a live-on-air contradiction. He tried to tear down Shedeur Sanders for being too bold, too public, too sure of himself, and ended up describing the exact qualities we want in a quarterback. Someone who's unfazed. Someone who's mentally tough. Someone who, in the middle of chaos, believes they can take control. That's not a red flag. That's the job description. And yet, Sanders' confidence was dissected like a crime scene, not because he disrespected teammates, not because he said anything remotely controversial, but because when asked about his role on the team, he answered with belief. Yes, that's the offense now. In case anyone forgot, Shedeur didn't walk into a press conference demanding the starting job. He was approached by the media. He was asked about his thoughts. And he responded the same way countless quarterbacks have, calmly, with faith in his abilities, and a nod to the work he's putting in behind the scenes. The media framed it as a power grab, because clicks, because controversy, because when you're a young, outspoken black quarterback with a famous last name and a spotlight that follows you everywhere, you don't get to be confident without catching heat for it. And GROSSI fumbled the opportunity to call it what it was, normal. Instead, he tried to make it the story, and it blew up in his face. Let's talk about that Browns offense for a second. This isn't a team humming along, barely needing a spark. This is a team starving for identity, bleeding out in the red zone, and rotating quarterbacks like it's a preseason scrimmage. GROSSI knows that. He literally said it. He called the offense awful. His word. So why is it such a shock that Shedeur believes he could lead it? He's watched it flail for weeks. He's watched the veteran decisions go south. He's watched other rookies get reps. And when asked how he feels about being a starter one day, he said what any high-level athlete says, "I believe I'm better than a lot of NFL quarterbacks." That's not delusion. That's competitive DNA. And it's not just Sanders saying it. His coaching staff has backed his work ethic. His teammates have praised his attitude. He hasn't stirred locker room drama. He hasn't blamed others. He hasn't asked for shortcuts. He stayed composed. Meanwhile, GROSSI was melting down on air because a rookie dared to speak with conviction, as if Shedeur was supposed to say, "Oh no, I'm not ready. Please play someone else." What are we even doing? There's also a fundamental misunderstanding of how quarterback development works. GROSSI's hyper-focus on sacks in the preseason was a dead giveaway, as if a few pressures in exhibition games are more important than decision-making, ball security, and command of the offense. Let's be clear. Shedeur wasn't turning the ball over. He wasn't making reckless throws. He was doing exactly what rookie quarterbacks are taught. Protect the football, learn the tempo, and adjust to the speed of the game. Taking a sack instead of forcing an interception isn't weakness. It's situational awareness. It's growth. But for GROSSI, that nuance didn't matter, because it didn't fit the story. He had to take ready before Sanders even played a snap. And when the facts didn't support it, he bent the argument until it snapped in his hands. And let's not skip over the double standard. When quarterbacks like Jackson Dart flash some attitude, it's confidence. When Caleb Williams walks with swagger, it's moxie. But when Shedeur Sanders speaks with the same energy, it's arrogance. You don't have to squint to see the pattern. This isn't about style. It's about perception. It's about who gets the benefit of the doubt and who gets called a distraction. And GROSSI, willingly or not, fed into that narrative. The truth is, Sanders' track record speaks for itself. He's not just some loud rookie trying to make noise. He was one of the most efficient college quarterbacks in the country. His leadership at Colorado was documented week after week. His preparation is praised by coaches. His interviews are polished. His reputation is clean. You don't have to like him. But if you're going to analyze him, at least start from a place of fairness. Because here's what the media rarely admits. Being wrong about a player doesn't mean you were fooled. It means you were lazy. It means you prioritize the storyline over the substance. You saw flash and assumed it meant ego. You heard a confident quote and assumed it meant entitlement. You forgot that NFL success is built on conviction. And then, when that player proves you wrong, it's not just a hit to your argument. It's a hit to your credibility. GROSSI's regret isn't just about getting it wrong. It's about how fast it all unraveled. The fans saw it. The analysts saw it. Even his co-hosts were side-eyeing the contradictions. He went from Sanders isn't ready to the offense is awful to maybe Sanders thinks he can help in the span of a few sentences. The backpedaling was almost impressive. But here's the lesson. When you're covering the NFL, you can't wing it on vibes, especially not with young quarterbacks, because their stories are still being written. And if you're already rooting for the ending, you're not doing your job. So what happens now? Shedeur keeps working. The Browns keep evaluating. The coaches keep watching. And at some point, sooner than later, he might get the nod. And when he does, you can be sure the same media voices that dismissed him will scramble to reframe the narrative. Suddenly, his confidence will be called leadership. His quotes will be visionary. His swag will be energy the team needed. But you'll remember how they try to spin it. So stay sharp, stay skeptical, and call out the contradictions when you see them. Because Shedeur Sanders doesn't need to win over media personalities who change their tune with the wind. He just needs to keep showing up, keep grinding. And when the time comes, prove on the field what he's been saying all along. Confidence isn't the problem. It's the prerequisite. And as for Tony Grossi, he might want to sit this next part out. If you're tired of the media flip-flops and the hot takes that age like milk, hit that subscribe button. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was Grossi out of bounds or just exposed? Let's talk about it. Now, here's where things get even messier. Because once the dust settled, it wasn't just fans dragging Grossi's name through the timeline. It was analysts, former players, and even casual observers who saw the contradiction for what it was. A media meltdown in real time. The kind of fumble you can't recover from. And to be clear, this isn't just about one bad segment. This is about a pattern. A long, tired tradition of veteran media figures treating young, confident players like they're the problem. While the actual problem, in this case, is a Browns offense running on fumes. Let's rewind the tape for a second. Joe Flacco gets thrown into the mix and immediately underperforms. Dylan Gabriel sees reps, and the offense still can't move. Stefanski starts hinting that Shedeur Sanders might be in the conversation, and boom, the narratives start flying. Not about the offense, not about the coach's decisions, but about Shedeur's attitude. It's classic scapegoating. Deflect from the real issue and toss a rookie into the fire for being too confident while your entire offense flatlines on Sundays. And Grossi, he bit hard. But here's the irony. If Shedeur wasn't confident, they'd roast him for that too. Doesn't have a mentality. Not ready for the spotlight. Lacks the edge. It's a trap. A quarterback like Sanders, especially one with a famous father, a social media presence, and his own name brand recognition, was never going to be allowed to simply exist. The standards are different. The expectations are louder. And any slip, real or imagined, becomes a headline. But here's where Shedeur continues to flip the script. He's not giving the media what they want. No rants. No viral drama. No friction in the locker room. Just patience, professionalism, and quiet work behind the scenes. And that drives them crazy. Because without drama, they have to create it. And that's exactly what Grossi did. He took standard quarterback confidence, something we praise in almost every successful NFL signal caller, and twisted it into ego. He ignored Shedeur's actual production, his spotless track record, and his leadership credibility in favor of a sensationalist angle. Because that's easier than acknowledging what's right in front of you. This kid might actually be good. Let's talk facts. Shedeur Sanders, in college, was one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the country. He had a touchdown-to-interception ratio that most NFL prospects would kill for. He handled pressure with poise. He played behind a weak offensive line, took hits, got back up, and still delivered. And now, in Cleveland, he's watching quarterbacks rotate in and out like a turnstile while the offense racks up 3 and outs. And he still hasn't called anyone out. He hasn't demanded the spotlight. He hasn't made it about him. He's just waiting, quietly, confidently. Meanwhile, Tony Grossi is screaming into a microphone about swagger. You want to talk about football IQ? Then let's have that conversation. Because the real IQ issue isn't with Shedeur. It's with commentators who still think quarterback success is about how humble you sound in interviews, not about what you do when it's time to perform. You know who else had too much confidence early on? Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Cam Newton, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers. All different personalities. All criticized early for being cocky, raw, or not polished enough. And yet, here they are, MVPs, Super Bowl champs, faces of franchises. Why? Because confidence isn't a liability in this league. It's survival. You don't lead a locker room without belief in yourself. You don't take over a huddle as a rookie unless you walk in like you belong there. You don't survive NFL pressure without the mental steel to block out the noise. And if you think Grossi was offering any kind of helpful critique, let's be honest. What was the actual point of his rant? Was it to analyze performance? No. Was it to explain XS and OS? No. Was it to offer a constructive take on Sanders' development? Absolutely not. It was to spark engagement. It was to stir the pot. It was a hit piece disguised as commentary. And here's the kicker. It didn't work. Because the second Grossi tried to spin Shedeur's confidence into controversy, he walked right into a wall of facts he couldn't outrun. Facts like Sanders not turning the ball over. Facts like the Browns' offense being ranked near the bottom. Facts like Stefanski saying, in his own words, that Sanders is firmly in the mix. It was checkmate. Now, Grossi is left holding the mic, hoping no one remembers how hard he tried to discredit a kid who hasn't even been given a proper shot yet. But you remember, and that's what matters. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about Tony Grossi. He's just the latest example of a system that needs to change. Sports media doesn't need more hot takes. It needs accountability. When a quarterback shows professionalism, don't twist it. When a young player shows confidence, don't smear it. And when your team is struggling, don't deflect the blame to someone who hasn't even played yet. That's not analysis. That's desperation. And guess what? The fans see right through it. You know what we do want to see? Growth, accountability, fair evaluations, and when necessary, a little humility from the people behind the mic. Because right now, it looks like Shedeur Sanders is doing everything right. He's staying composed. He's earning trust. He's showing leadership. And when he finally steps onto that field as QB1, the narrative will shift faster than Grossi can delete a tweet. So let's not pretend this didn't happen. Let's hold media accountable the way they love to hold players accountable. Let's demand that commentary be grounded in facts, not feelings. Because if we let narratives run wild, we rob players of their real stories. We strip away the nuance. And we turn football into theater, where the loudest voice wins, not the most informed one. Shedeur doesn't need anyone to protect his reputation. He's building it with every practice, every film session, every time he puts on a jersey. But what he does deserve is a level playing field. And that starts with calling out bad takes when we see them. So if you're tired of the manufactured outrage, tired of the media double standards, tired of watching young players get torn down before they even get started, do something about it. Call it out. Share the facts. Challenge the narratives. And most importantly, stay locked in, because this story isn't over. And when Shedeur Sanders gets his moment, it won't be a surprise. It'll be the natural result of everything he's done to earn it. And as for Tony Grossi, let's just say, we'll remember who bet against him. The real tragedy in all this isn't that Tony Grossi embarrassed himself. That's just Tuesday in sports media. The bigger issue is what it represents. How easily a narrative gets built, distorted, and weaponized, especially when it comes to young, high-profile athletes like Shedeur Sanders. This wasn't just a one-off take. It's a symptom of an industry addicted to outrage. Here's the blueprint. Take a confident, outspoken young athlete. Find a quote that can be pulled out of context. Apply a little moral panic. Then toss it into the 24-hour content cycle and let the machine do the rest. Instant engagement. Instant controversy. And, let's be real, instant clicks. But what happens when the target of that narrative isn't some reckless rookie with no track record? What happens when he isn't mouthing off or blowing assignments? What happens when he's doing everything right and still getting torn down? That's where it gets uncomfortable, because it forces people to ask harder questions about media bias, about coded language, about which players are allowed to be confident, and which ones get crucified for it. Let's talk about that double standard, because it's loud and it's ugly. Shedeur Sanders says he believes he's better than some NFL quarterbacks. The reaction? He's cocky. He's improving. He needs to shut up and earn it. But when someone like Baker Mayfield or Will Levis says the exact same thing, suddenly it's swagger. It's competitive fire. It's the chip on his shoulder. And no, it's not just a race thing. Though let's not pretend that isn't part of the conversation. It's about the mold, the image, the media's idea of who a leader is supposed to be. If you fit the mold, you're praised for your edge. If you don't, you're arrogant, flashy, or uncoachable. Shedeur doesn't fit the mold. He doesn't play humble in press conferences just to make people comfortable. He doesn't hide his ambition. And most importantly, he doesn't give bad faith critics like GROSSI the reaction they're looking for. That's power. And that's precisely why they come for him. But here's what they can't take away, his tape. You can spin quotes. You can twist interviews. But you can't fake production. And Shedeur's college career speaks for itself. Top-tier completion percentage, low turnovers, clutch decision-making, and leadership in high-pressure situations. He's been tested. He's been hit. He's carried teams on his back. And now, in Cleveland, all he said is, "I'm ready if they need me." That's it. That's the whole quote that got twisted into a scandal. A rookie quarterback expressing confidence in his ability to lead when the team is struggling. And suddenly it's headline fuel. What exactly was he supposed to say? Actually, I'm trash, and the fans are right to be skeptical? Confidence isn't arrogance. It's preparedness. It's focus. And when you're in a position like Shedeur's, being discussed as a potential QB1 in a franchise that's been starving for consistency, it's not just okay to believe in yourself. It's required. So when GROSSI turned that confidence into a hit job, it backfired not just because it was petty. It backfired because it was obviously wrong. He tried to weaponize swagger and ended up highlighting maturity. He tried to label Sanders as a problem and accidentally spotlighted how badly the Browns need someone like him. And the internet noticed. You could practically hear the shift online. Fans who've been skeptical started calling out the double standards. Analysts began quoting stats instead of vibes. Even some media peers started walking back the narrative. Because deep down, most people want to root for a young player trying to earn his spot the right way. Especially when he's facing unfair criticism. Especially when he's handling it like a professional. And that's what makes this so important. This isn't just about one player. It's about how we treat players. It's about whether we let lazy narratives define athletes before they've even been given a chance. It's about demanding more from the people who shape public perception. Shedeur Sanders might not be your favorite quarterback. He might not even start this season. But none of that justifies the smear campaign we just witnessed. Tony GROSSI wasn't offering critique. He was pushing a narrative. And the moment that narrative collapsed under its own contradictions, it became clear who was actually being emotional and irrational. Spoiler, it wasn't a 21-year-old rookie. It was a grown man yelling about attitude while ignoring performance. So what do we do with that? We start holding media accountable with the same energy they bring to players. We start demanding more substance, less spin. We stop letting one quote define a player's entire identity. Because Shedeur Sanders deserves better. And frankly, so do we. We deserve coverage that actually talks about football. We deserve analysts who dig into film, not feelings. And we deserve conversations that respect what it takes to succeed in this league. That means acknowledging when confidence is earned. That means putting bias aside and evaluating talent on its merits. And most of all, that means admitting when a narrative has failed. This one failed. Miserably. GROSSI tried to stir controversy and got caught contradicting himself. He tried to control the story and ended up in the story. And in doing so, he reminded us all why critical media literacy is more important than ever. Because one thing is crystal clear. The only person who came out of this looking composed, focused, and ready to lead was Shedeur Sanders. If you're tired of lazy takes, manufactured outrage, and biased narratives in sports media, now's the time to speak up. Drop a comment, share your thoughts, and hit that subscribe button to stay locked in on the real stories, the ones that matter. Let's start holding the mic and the message accountable.